That was Saturday, of course, homecoming. Was that before or after you had learned about what was going to eventually transpire with flying out to LA and learning about the Ellen DeGeneres show?
So it's actually funny. We flew out the Monday prior. So we flew out Monday the 16th. The show was taped on the 17th. So I had known from the 17th until, homecoming what had happened. And it was incredibly hard to kind of tell people what was happening, but also was a whirlwind. I mean, had just flown back from LA, came back to school on Wednesday.
How many people knew of this?
So it was just my roommate and I. We weren't allowed to tell anybody. They told us not to tell anybody, and I mean, we told our parents, but that was it. So it was just us and our parents that really knew. So we had to go through homecoming, which was an adrenaline rush on top of the other adrenaline rush, and had to wait until it aired on Monday for the real craziness to begin.
Talk about your emotions going into it. You're sitting on a plane. You know that you're going to be sitting in on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Your friend with you that penned the letter. First, talk about your relationship with her.
Oh, I mean, you talk about a best friend right there. I mean, not many people can say that their best friend, got them to meet their role model of their entire life. But it's funny, Steph and I, we joke around all the time. We used to date my freshman year. So that's always something that we crack up about. But, she has hands down been my rock for 4 years, and just such a great friend, and could not think of a better person to kind of take that journey with. And I'm so grateful to have her in my life, and she's a really great friend.
How did you find out? Did she break the news to you? Was it a phone call from the producers of the show? Take me through finding out that this was about to happen.
Well, so we had put in for tickets. We did this a while ago, kind of put in hopes that, one day we would be able to go to the Ellen show. And then we received a call saying that we got selected for tickets, which was crazy because people write in daily to get tickets. And we were selected. I wasn't really sure why. So after talking to her, and she kind of admitted that she wrote a letter. So I was sobbing at that point. And then, we fly out there and they tell us that we're going to be in the audience, which to me would have been, more than enough. And then next thing I know, they're calling us up on stage, and it still really hasn't sunk in yet.
It's so great. I think I've watched the video just a few times, and it's just so remarkable where you try to put yourself in that position. And for anyone that's ever met a mentor in their life, it's such a remarkable feeling that you remember for the rest of your life. Right. And it's so special whenever any individual has the opportunity to go through that. And it's just a blur of emotions. Yeah. It's just an absolute blur. So just take me through, if you can recall, what's going on in your mind when you're sitting in the seats of the crowd, the way that it was showed on television, the way it was edited. So you were dancing during a commercial break with one of the DJs of the show, and you get back from break, and she's looking over at you and says, what's your name over there?
I still have chills, yeah. So, we're in the audience. I'm not sure why I decided to wear a wool sweater in Los Angeles. It was 90 degrees that day. So, we're in the audience, and Twitch, the DJ, had come out before the show even started. And, he's dancing with audience members. And here I am thinking, like, oh, this is my time to shine, thinking that's my way of, being seen on national television, was dancing with him. So I was so thrilled. He came over and immediately danced with me. And he also danced with other members in the audience. But little to my surprise, they were going to use that footage, later to introduce myself. So, it's still such a whirlwind experience. And even you saying it back to me, I still, get chills that she pulled me out of the audience and did all that. So it's crazy.
Just remarkable to watch. It was just a great moment. And for me to see the show live itself, or not live, but when it first aired for the very first time, it was just such a cool experience, because you feel like in a small way that you're a part of that you're just sharing in the excitement of everything that goes on. And it's one of many reasons where we talk about SHIP just being that small community.
Right.
And it's just one of those moments where, it's just so reinforced, right? What goes through your mind now when you see the video on the Facebook page on YouTube? You're able to relive it as many times as you want. On the Facebook page of the Ellen DeGeneres show, you look down below and you see that there's 2.6 million views of the video, and just a long list of comments, even with some comments ranging from your dad himself, just thanking the amount of people that have been so supportive of you as a human being, as a student of the LGBT community. just try to put that into words, what it means for you as just a human, and just to see 2.6 million people all there supporting you online.
I think, it has just been so like overwhelming to see the amount of support I have received, but more or less just to see the amount of people that Ellen reaches. I mean, I have counted, I think we're about 1,800 Facebook messages that I've received, and I have done my best to respond to each and every one of them. But we're getting hugs from South Africa, and hugs from Chile, and all around the world. The impact that she has on so many people is remarkable. My dad, loved that he commented. It was so beautiful and touching, and made me cry. But I don't think he really knew what he was doing. So, by commenting and saying, how supportive of a father he was, he got about 700 messages that evening, which actually shut his phone off. So I had to Skype him on our computers because his phone had shut off from all the messages he was receiving. But, it's been overwhelming to see how many wonderful people out there support what we're doing. And really, I think the most beautiful comments I've seen are the ones of SHIP alum, the people who are reaching back out and saying how proud they are to go to Shippensburg. And that's really what it boils down to is I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't love this place so much, and I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if it weren't for the people here supporting me and helping me to achieve this goal.
And going off with that, it's almost so poetic where we spoke about one of the comments that your father made himself, and I recall it being something just verbatim along the lines of, all you can do as a parent is just try to teach your son or daughter right from wrong, and then you set them free. Mm-hmm. When you hear those words, what comes to mind for you?
My dad is hands down, he's a really emotional guy. He's a softie, but, I would not be who I am today if it weren't for, he and my mother. They have hands down supported me in every decision I've ever made. They've been, my rock through everything. And it just goes to show that, having that support system, you really can do anything you set your mind to. And I think that I would not be where I was if it weren't for them.
Before I forget, I have a few friends that I told that I was doing this interview, and they're frequent watchers, similar to you, of the Ellen Show, and they wanted me to ask, did you come anywhere near the Tom Hanks chair?
No, sadly not. No, we didn't. No, sadly not. But, it was just crazy to even be there. But, yeah, definitely would have wished to have come near the Tom Hanks chair.
People were explaining to me what that was before. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. It's one of those neat things, right, television,
yeah, exactly,
very unique to experience, but just classic Hollywood stuff
of
right
course,
there.
Yep.
So moving forward, you're on stage, and as soon as she as an Ellen DeGeneres says the words, "We want to help you,"
still makes my heart drop just hearing those words again. Yeah, it's just one of those things that I don't think I could have ever prepared for. The fact that being in her presence enough was payback, I guess you could say, but the fact that she went above and beyond to hand me a check was just completely mind-blowing and still has not, sunk in.
That was just a great moment. I mean, again, I've watched it back multiple times because it's one of those things where, like, if you need to smile, if you're having a rough day, like, that's what you go to. And isn't that just almost like the Ellen DeGeneres show as a whole, right?
Correct, yeah.
Where it's almost that like 1 hour escape from reality where,
True.
You look at all the protesting, you look at all the stuff going on, whether it's with the administration, whether you agree or disagree with it, and just all the controversy going on. It's just almost that 1 hour of escape. And it's just almost like so poetic where that's exactly what it was for a lot of people on campus at the time itself. That was just an escape for so many people. And the stress of college, you're able to watch a fellow classmate, an ambassador in the community, be able to have such an outstanding moment for himself and his family. It was just a great thing.
Well, thank you. And that's the thing, too, is, that's what it was. That's what that show was for me growing up. Growing up, we always watched it as a family because my parents' message was always to be kind to one another. So they loved, seeing that someone had already made a platform out of that. And they loved, teaching us the morals and the lessons to kind of be kind to each other. But, as I grew up and as I started to realize who I was, the show, adopted a different reason for me, a different meaning. And she really taught you to live unapologetically. And, she taught me to be confident in who I am and to be proactive and make a change. And so I think that the crazy thing is that I'm doing what I'm doing, and, she gave back to me, but really I should have been the one giving back to her because, she was there for me without even knowing it.
Couldn't be happier for you. Tremendous person. I couldn't think of somebody more deserving for all of this to happen to. So incredibly happy for you. It's amazing how you know somebody for a few years and how a perception of another person can change in such a beautiful way through a short period of time, where you go from Trent Bauer, a basketball player whose name you're calling on radio for an NCAA Division II basketball game, and then suddenly there's so much more value associated with one person. I think it's just such an outstanding thing. So it gives me chills talking about it. It's such a it's a privilege again for me to be doing this interview. Honestly,
so
I've done a lot of interviews I'm so proud of, and this ranks like near the top for me. This is outstanding.
Thank you so much for that.
It's just a great story.
That means the world.
Do you want to talk about yesterday and some of the events that transpired?
Sure.
If you think it's appropriate as
Yeah,
well.
of course.
We hate to kind of take a step in backwards in terms of tone. We like this to be a feel-good, happy interview, but nonetheless, it's one of those things that I feel it's important to talk about. If anything, if there's any positive I think that you can pull out of yesterday, is that there's now a conversation, essentially, which is so important. So for those that don't know or need a refresher, there was a bit of it's almost difficult to even come up with the right words to what was it? Was it a protest? Can one person be a protest? I think so. What do you refer to yesterday as? How do you summarize it?
It's difficult because, to see somebody voicing their opinion, I am a firm believer in freedom of speech. I like the right and the responsibility to protest and stand up for what you believe in. However, I think there are appropriate ways to do that. This man had come onto campus. I think that in his mind, what he thought was doing was, teaching religious acts to students who he thought needed them. However, I think he went about it in the wrong way. He, was targeting students and calling them names prior to everyone else getting there. I think he did his job. He wanted to create attention. He wanted to, make a stir. So he did target some students early on in his, I guess you could call it, protest, which kind of got the crowd riled up. But I think at the end of the day, the takeaway for me was so many passionate students showed up to voice that we do not stand for acts of hate like that. Some of them, did speak out and say some things that I am not very proud of. But at the same time, a few bad apples cannot ruin the whole group. There were so many students there in solidarity and support of their fellow classmates, and the police were there and they kept everyone protected. I know that some students felt that they were protecting somebody on our campus. However, in my opinion, I think they were doing the best to keep everyone safe. We had some awesome administrators and faculty members there to kind of keep everything under wraps. But at the end of the day, it's just so wonderful to see so many students stand up against acts of hate like that. And, I really was proud to say that I go to Shippensburg University after yesterday.
Troy Oakham, the editor-in-chief of the Slate newspaper, along with news editor Jenna Wise, they have a lot of great raw video footage and pictures from the protest that went on yesterday. And I think one of the most, the theme of this show is almost chills, essentially. We're just thinking about everything that has gone on. And another picture that also gave me chills was one where the protester is surrounded by a bunch of students, and you make your way to the front of the line and you outstretch your arm to shake his hand. Yeah. Why would you want to shake his hand after everything had transpired of him making hateful comments against some of your beliefs? What was going on through your head? Well,
I think it as cliche as it sounds, I'm a firm believer that love will always win. And I think that you have to treat people the way you want to be treated. And, if some people do not agree with my opinion, the last thing I would want is for them to come at me and yell hateful things at me. So I think, I was trying to kind of reach that, olive branch out and say, I would love to have a conversation. I would love to hear why you feel this is the right way to go about saying what you're saying. I would love that we could take this conversation somewhere else, a little private or a little less out in the public and just kind of discuss some of the reasons you feel that this was the right thing to do on today, because he had shared that he was there in response to the things that were going on national television.
So that was a next question of mine. So he was there in response to your stance that you've made publicly on national TV.
Well, I don't think that was his sole reason. He was saying some other things in regards to that, but he had shared earlier, before a lot of students had got there, that he was there in response to the Ellen shows, what he had said. But at the same time, I personally felt like I had to do something because I was the one that took that stance nationally. But at the same time, though, I really think that there could have been a better way to go about that as students. We could have just easily just ignored it and walked away, which is what I was trying to get students to do. But at the same time, I will never fault students for being passionate and standing up against something that they believe should not be here. So I have about 20 to 30 students that I have kind of selected or have volunteered. We call ourselves the Pride Center Task Force, and they have just been overwhelmingly supportive, and they volunteer their time outside of all their other obligations and all the other stuff they're involved in. So I really want to find a way to give back to them, but I also am using some of the money to set up a scholarship here for some LGBT activists that will come after me, so I can kind of give them the opportunity that I was provided.
That's outstanding. Well, Trent Bauer, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Like you mentioned, the amount of messages coming in on a daily basis has to be overwhelming, like you're in the receiving end of a Christmas movie, kind of, where just all the mail is coming in.
That's a good
analogy.
There you go. Thank you.
But nonetheless, thank you so much for joining us, the great and powerful Trent Bauer, but in more senses now than we have even could have imagined when those words were first iterated by Joey Marinelli. Wow. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, my pleasure. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.